everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And this is really exciting. We are doing a bonus episode. We're talking about one of the classics of Christmas moviedom and its long awaited sequel. Well, they've had other sequels, but a good sequel. We're talking about A Christmas Story and A Christmas Story Christmas. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and podcaster Aaron Taylor's here.
Hello. Thank you for having me again. It's so great to be back.
Yeah, so nice to see you again. If people didn't listen to our book episode for Persuasion when we did this summer,
Mhm.
then they missed having you here on the podcast for the first time. But why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit to our wider audience?
Yeah, so I'm Aaron. Excuse me. I'm Aaron, and I am from the YouTube channel Aaron's Reading Room, where I talk about romance books. And then I am one half of the hosts of the Categorically Romance podcast, my good friend Bree, who is on here quite often as well.
Yes, we love Bree so much. We love the podcast, and I guess remind our listeners how did you get involved in that? How did you meet Bree and get involved in that?
It was really me talking on YouTube about romance books, and I started getting into category romance, and they quickly started messaging me and following my tweets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Sarah was unfortunately going through some medical stuff and having a stay in the hospital, I did some fill-in time for her. And then after that, they just asked me to stay on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
So, what do you wish that people understood about romance reading category romance, like you talked about on your podcast? Because I feel like it's a genre that's often derided,
yeah.
criticized without people having ever read any of them.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that these are not cheap stories. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a misconception to someone that's probably never read much in their life to begin with to say that it's easy to write a romance book, which is not the truth at all. Go ahead and give it a try. And
Right.
you know, I mean, anyone can write some smut, but writing an actual good romance book that takes a lot of effort, a lot of planning, and getting your characters in the right spots at the right time, in the right binds at the correct moments, and finding that happily ever after that actually makes people feel good. And that's something I want people to know too. These books make you feel really good,
Yeah.
when you read them.
Yeah. I agree. I think that it's I mean, I've said for a long time that I think the reason why people love romance, whether book or movie, is because they're essentially hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They're about,
absolutely.
good things and happy endings happening to the people that are in the stories. I mean, occasionally I guess you'll have a tragic romance, but like a Romeo and Juliet or something like that. But
Yeah, yeah.
but for the most part, even Romeo and Juliet is still, I think, in the end about hope,
Mm-hmm.
about finding the good in people and not looking at these sort of divisions that love coming through that these divisions,
Mm-hmm.
these prejudices that we have, and so I think that's why the genre is so durable, particularly in people like fantasy. People like dreaming of something fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, these books aren't just for people that are it, I've heard it said that these are like a fantasy world for unfortunately women in particular
Yeah.
to live through a life that they're not getting in real life. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. Like, there's so many married people, there's people of all sorts of relationship
Yeah.
dynamics out there that still enjoy a good romance book. I mean, I
But
am.
even if that
Yeah,
were the case, why is that bad?
it's not
Like,
bad at all. And
what's
anyone that's,
wrong with
yeah.
having a break from this life, that we have?
Right, yes, this pre-dystopia we're living in right now.
Right. Yeah.
And there are no unrealistic expectations when it comes to men in romance books. I gotta say, the bar is pretty low. It's listening and
Right.
taking in what your partner is telling you and understanding them better. That's not a huge bar to get to. Not
Yeah.
unrealistic at all.
Especially when you get like some rural guys, that are just like sweet. And I mean, when they have to have like the perfect physique, the Fabio of the
Yeah.
romance world, that'd probably be a little intimidating. But I feel like we're getting more sort of just the sweet, cuddly guy too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I mean, not everyone in real life is Dwayne Johnson, who's in a
Right.
lot of movies that people enjoy. So that's,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about A Christmas Story. This can be very fun.
oh yes, I love this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like it's a movie that most people love, but that there's this group, of course, that are detractors against it. But
Mhm.
I never really understand the people that are like, they play it too much on TV. Who cares? Like, just watch. There's like a billion channels. Like, just watch something else. Like, if you don't want to watch it, like, I don't know. I just think that's the weirdest complaint.
Yeah, I haven't had cable television or broadcast television for probably
Long
10
time.
years now.
Yeah.
But when I'm like at my parents' house for the holidays or whatever, yeah, that TV is going to be on whatever channel is just running it back to back,
Yeah. TBS.
all day long. and and my spouse is definitely a detractor. They cannot stand that movie. I made sure to do my watches of this while they were at work, so I can spare them. But I think my kids are getting to an age where they appreciate
Yeah.
it. So
Oh, that's good.
it might have been that it was a weekday that I watched it, and television screens aren't allowed during the weekdays unless I or my spouse are watching something. So maybe that sucked them in a little bit. But
Yeah.
in the times that we watched it before, I think maybe they were a little too young to get the sort of sarcastic nature of the narrator and everything, and what's
Hmm.
happening on screen.
Well, I think that the narrator goes a long way in making this movie really stand out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I mean, to have the actual writer of the book, Gene Shepard, narrating, and he's just got that like droll, Midwest droll, I think.
yeah. Well, and just his emoting coming through. It's he has the excitement of a child, and it's like,
Yes.
oh yeah, Santa. I'll tell Santa.
He's got the excitement of a child and the derision of an adult. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
there's like a mixture. Really
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
That makes it work really well. And I think Peter Billingsley is just so lovely in this movie. Like, such a good child performance.
Hmm. Yeah, he is great, and he did so well for being such a young actor and just nailing
Hmm.
the spirit of what this movie was going for, and just matching so much with the mentality of the narrator as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and funny thing, I read an article about him a few years ago now, but he still gets recognized on the street
Oh, sure.
as Ralphie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it was nice to come back and do the sequel, which we'll talk about. But because I don't know, just kind of to tie a bow on that whole this thing in his life, it must have been kind of nice.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also love Melinda Dillon as the mom. I think she is so good in this movie, uh and giving a really like sweet and subtle performance. I mean, there's just a lot of little moments with her that I love, like when she rescues him from the bully, or
Yeah.
when she makes him take soap,
Yeah.
and then she puts it in her mouth for a second. She's like, oh, gross.
Yeah, I mean nothing huge, but these little perfect moments
Yes.
throughout the film, like when the dad asks for more food, which it's just right behind them, like they can't get up themselves to get
Yeah,
more
I
get
know.
themselves
Oh,
more food. They have to ask mom to do it for them. But dad asks his wife to get him more food, and as soon as she sits back down and has the fork almost in her mouth, Ralphie's like, "Oh, can I have some more?"
my mother hadn't eaten a hot meal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just that quiet exasperation on her face.
Yeah. And of course, the whole story is all centered around Ralphie's desire for a Red Ryder carbine action 200 shot range model air rifle.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Thank you for saying it in full.
Yes. And I'm curious, did you have that sort of gift that you really wanted from Santa growing up? Like the kind of similar type thing?
I I don't think to that degree.
Yeah.
Like I would have my little obsessions, as a child, but maybe I'm just too far removed from that at this point to remember being that excited or hopeful to get something. Um,
Yeah,
I
I can't remember if I got it for Christmas or my birthday, but I know I really, really, really wanted an American Girl doll. That was a big
oh yeah.
kind of dream item
Uh-huh.
to get Samantha and Molly. I ended up getting two. It was just very,
Ooh.
I know.
Yeah,
Uh,
my mother got all of the granddaughters American Girl dolls at some point, but it was,
yeah, I
I
feel
don't
like
I think it was more for grandma than it was for the kids.
I think that that's still like a marquee item, like American
Mhm.
Girl. They're just they're so fun. And I mean it's a great toy because what I in my opinion, and I don't have children, so what do I know? But it seems like to me the best kind of gifts to give a kid are ones that provide imagination. Like that like you can then take that toy, that doll, American Girl doll, and then you can create all kinds of scenarios and have kind of all kinds of playtime as opposed to like other toys which you're kind of like you use them and then you're done.
Mhm.
They don't provide like a tool for imagination
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
playtime.
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. A couple years ago, kids went and spent their Christmas money on toys, and one was this like battery or it was a powered toy that had
Yeah.
it was like an owl that if you had it the right ways it would spin around and it would actually like take off and fly or something, but that was it, that was all it did, and
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, like something like
kind
a
of a one and
board
done.
game is not really a very good gift because I mean they can be fun
Hmm.
and I love playing board games, but they're not like you can't like you use them as a tool for imagination.
Right, you can't play
Yeah.
them by yourself is a big
Right.
thing, so
Yeah.
you've always got to have enough willing people to participate.
Although it doesn't seem like we would always get one board game. I say that, and I feel like we would always get one new one every year, and then end up playing it on Christmas Day.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
I, I mean, I have lots of happy memories of playing Pit with my family. Did you ever play
uh,
Pit?
no, I haven't. What's
Oh,
that
you
one?
should get it for your family. It's super fun. It's just a card game, but
Hmm.
you're pretending like those people in the stock market that are like one 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 one,
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
yelling. It's like that, but in a game. So you say you have like three wheat and you want to get four, so you hold up one that you want to trade and you go one 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 one, and then the other person you start swapping swapping swapping, and then when you get the full set, you go uh you hit the table, say corner on the market, and I don't know. It's really fun because you get everybody just like yelling, which is like
Okay, yeah.
prime holiday
Uh-huh.
activity.
Right, yeah, yeah, exactly. It's I mean, it gets everyone excited, right?
Yeah. but but yeah, I mean, I love the opening of this movie with Higbee's department store and all the I don't understand why the Wizard of Oz is there. Like why Dorothy and the Tin Man is over there, but
Right, yeah.
nevertheless, the whole like Christmas parade and everything, and it's just a really fun way to start the movie.
Yeah, and I mean it's obviously was a Disney property, right? Or
Yeah.
is because Mickey was in the parade
Oh
and
yeah,
so I
that's
was
true.
just like, boy, this has to be Disney or else they wouldn't get away with that. I mean, just
And
plugging their other properties.
yeah, and so Ralphie, he really wants this gun, and he's a very imaginative kid. And so he has all these fantasy sequences. What do you think of the fantasy sequences?
I loved the fantasy sequences in the first one. I'll preface the way that it's I don't know what it's called, but it's almost like stop motion with real people. Black Bart and his
Yeah,
gang like having these real
yeah,
like it's a very jumpy type movement. Uh,
yeah,
and the it just reminds you of like I never experienced this myself, but when you'd see way back when people go to a cinema to like watch news and the shorts and things like that and the cartoons, it has that kind of feel of the cowboy defending from the bad guys.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, that's such a little boy fantasy too, of like,
Yeah.
oh, something's gonna happen and I'm gonna save everyone and everyone's gonna be so proud of me.
Especially in 1940. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
they would be thinking of is
Mhm.
uh is sort of silent movie westerns, those kinds of
Mhm.
things. Yeah. And I I do think it's kind of funny that uh that the kids, they're supposed to be 9 years old and they're reading Silas Marner. Like,
Yeah.
school. Our education system has gone downhill.
Yeah.
No way
It's only gotten worse from there.
you're reading like George Eliot and for 9 year olds. But he gets to write this theme, and
Mhm.
I think that is just like a really cute little sequence, of when he's never did the pen flow more freely,
Yeah.
and it makes it cute. I like the fact that in the sequel that they have him be a writer, because you can see that in like young Ralphie. I feel like that was smart.
Mhm. Um,
I
let's
thought.
see. Were you, were you doing was this the A Christmas Story 2?
No,
The
the a Christmas Story, Christmas, the new one on HBO Max.
okay. Goodness, I didn't get to that one. I watched the Christmas Story too. So sorry, I messed it all up.
Oh, you watched the Christmas Story too? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about both then. And but yeah, so in the Christmas Story Christmas on HBO
Hmm.
Max, they have him be a writer, which I thought
Okay.
was really smart.
So
And
is he the dad now in this one?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. This is all right.
Which was smart. To thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the good folks at Baker Publishing Group. Looking for the perfect gift for the book lover in your life? Dive into some great dual time novels this Christmas where the past intersects with the present. First up, we have By Way of the Moonlight by Elizabeth Musser. Allie Massey's dream to use her grandparents' estate for equine therapy is crushed when she discovers the property has been sold to a contractor. With weeks until demolition, Allie unearths some of Nanadale's best kept secrets, including her champion filly, a handsome man, and one fateful night during World War II, and perhaps a clue to keep her own dream alive. Next, Where the Last Rose Blooms by Ashley Clark. More than a century apart, two women seek lost hope. Abolitionist Clara is determined to help an enslaved woman reunite with her daughter. Alice can't stop wondering what happened to her mother in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Faced with the unknown, both women will have to dig deep to let their courage bloom. Next, When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. Libby has been given a powerful gift to live one life in 1774 colonial Williamsburg and the other in 1914 Gilded Age New York City. When she falls asleep in one life, she wakes up in the other without any time passing. On her 21st birthday, Libby must choose one path and forfeit the other. But how can she possibly decide when she has so much to lose? Then we have The Master Craftsman by Kelly Stewart. When Ava Lane's dying treasure hunter father entrusts to her his mission to find a missing Fabergé egg, she has no idea how high the stakes will climb or how her allegiances will be tested. Join the hunt in this lavish dual-time narrative that plunges you into the 1917 Russian Revolution, the fall of the Romanovs, and a long-buried Soviet secret. And finally, The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunsfold. Frustrated reporter Aidan Kelly begrudgingly agrees to help a hospice patient prepare her obituary, but old Claire Kipp has some incredible stories and some surprises up her sleeve that promises to make this seemingly throwaway assignment a life-changing one. So head over to bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies to pick up one of these great books and use code Hallmarkies40 for 40% off these titles from November 14th to December 12th. That's bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies and use code Hallmarkies40 for 40% off. Have the whole shenanigans involving Flick and the double dog dare.
Uh-huh.
and, and I feel like this is very like, because sometimes they have in these kind of stunts and stuff. And it can still be fun, like Home Alone and whatever. Like it can still be fun. But it like totally unrealistic that like a kid could pull this off. Whereas this
Yeah.
feels like, yeah, absolutely, this could happen and probably has happened.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this has happened 100 times. This has happened more than once, but never to the same person twice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
would you be convinced with the double dog dare?
I so I learned very early from this movie not to stick your tongue to metal in the in the freezing cold. And so this movie taught me well not to pull that. But I I love how extreme it gets. The fire department and the police show up
Yeah.
to just rip him off the pole, which is so funny because all you have to do is pour maybe warmish water over the
Well,
kid's tongue. And
Schwartz skips the dog dare and goes straight to the double dog dare. That's why.
yeah, that was, I never had levels of dare much in my elementary school, but I love the whole explanation of the system of well, you got dared this much to do it, so now you got to put up, right?
Yeah. And he's absolutely right that adults say things like, I'm sure the guilt you feel is much worse than anything I could. And he says, adults always say things like that, and kids know the truth. It's always better not to get caught, which is absolutely true.
So true. Yeah, I was definitely in that spot before where the teacher's standing right over me and I'm doing the like looking back and forth. Oh, who did it, huh?
Yeah. Well, what did you think of the old man in the movie? It's interesting because in this Christmas movie, Christmas, they he has passed away, the dad.
Okay, yeah.
It's set in the 70s, and they have such affection for, like, everybody has such affection for the old man. And I'm not saying there isn't reason, but I was kind of expecting it to be a little more complicated because he's he's got his negative sides, let's say that,
Yes. Yeah, he definitely has his man of the times, I guess.
But he's one of those dads that comes through in the end, you
Uh-huh.
know. He
Yeah.
he and I mean, but I just, again, I love Melinda Dillon, and Daddy's gonna kill Ralphie.
Yeah.
Not going to kill Ralphie. And that, yeah. And I actually think the whole bully storyline is kind of underappreciated. I feel like there is somebody who was bullied as a kid, and that whole storyline was always like really emotional to me. And when
Hmm.
when he he just kind of leaves crying, and his mom, and then after, and he says things will be different between me and my mom after this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It was a really just very touching moment. And it, the mom, when she stops him from beating up the bully, well, I guess at first, just getting to that point where it's like everything's awful and oh, the bully has to show up now, and just that snap moment. I think everyone that's bullied like kind of wishes they had a moment like that where they just took the power and just whatever, threw everything out the window and just went after their bully. um but yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes dinner time and he's just dreading what's gonna happen, and mom just plays, oh, just boys, right, and then distracts dad with oh, I see the bears are playing.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because so I served my mission for my church in Indiana, and
Mm,
so many movies are set in Indiana. It's kind of like the place where if you want a homespun Midwestern charm, you go
mm-hmm.
to Indiana. And so is the case here. And it's also it is very like iconic and sweet. And you've got your like classic family with two kids, mom and dad, two kids.
Mhm.
But we should talk about the major award.
Oh, I
So, oh man, he enters these crossword puzzles. They what is it? The what the one of the clues, oh my gosh, my brain. The nephew's horse, the
oh yeah, the Lone Ranger's
Lone
nephew's
Ranger.
horse.
Yeah, the Lone
Yeah,
Ranger's nephew's horse is one of the great characters of literature.
yeah, American literature. Everyone knows that, and everyone knows his name.
But he finds out that he's won a major award, and that he's thinking, oh, it could be a bowling alley. They could send the
Right.
deed.
Yeah, could be anything.
Yeah. Uh, and it comes, of course, in the crate, and it says fragile on it. Fragile. It must be
Yeah.
Italian.
Oh, that's a huge joke in my
Yeah,
family
huge.
anytime. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it ends up being this lamp, this leg lamp. And I just there's so many funny lines with it. The hot glove, electric sex in the window.
Yes. Yeah.
My mother was trying to distract them from the hot glove. But I feel like that this is also very legit. Like you, because the thing about it is that most of adult life is just doing the same stuff over and over and
Yes.
over
Yes.
again. And
Hmm.
so when something happens that makes it feel different, it's so exciting.
Hmm.
And so
Yes.
I think anybody would be like, oh, what? What?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, the dad just he has that excitement of life is so mundane, but oh, I won this thing.
Yeah.
Has this moment of I'm special, and wants everyone to be proud of him, and in this
Yeah.
moment is so proud of this gift, this prize, major prize that he won.
Yeah. It wasn't a prize, but my dad is a very like extroverted person. And
Mm.
so he would get super excited about whatever it is he was doing and want to tell everybody in the neighborhood. And sometimes we'd be like, oh, dad. But I remember one time my mom had to have a full bed rest for her pregnancies. And so
Hmm.
she was pregnant, and this was when I was a freshman in high school. And he, he decided that he was going to take care of the garden. We had a big garden back in the backyard, and that he was only going to plant tomato plants because he was going to have his kids out on the street selling tomatoes. And we were all like, uh, no way. Like, we're not doing that. But he worked really, really hard on it. And we had so many tomatoes. And like, he was so proud of that tomato. And like, we went around with this, because of course we didn't sell them. Like, I mean,
No, yeah.
again, if we had been like, if it had been an economic necessity, I guess we would have, but it wasn't for us, luckily. And so we were just like, yeah, right, we're not doing that. And so we filled up a like red wagon, and my
Hmm.
sisters went around and gave out tomatoes to the whole neighborhood. And my dad couldn't have been more proud.
Yeah. Oh,
I think
that's
that's
sweet.
kind of that's the same energy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, yeah, you're not going to sell those, but definitely because that's just like a summer thing, right? That
Yeah.
all you go knocking on your neighbors' doors, and they come knocking on yours. It's like, here, take these zucchinis and tomatoes. I
Yeah.
can't eat them all.
Yeah. But I think that's the sign of a good dad, is if you are
Yeah.
trying, probably unsuccessfully, to get your kids excited about stuff in life.
Right.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
feel that with your family.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And
I was even saying, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on the Hallmark's podcast and talk about these movies. It's gonna be so exciting. They're like, okay, Dad.
yeah, sure, Dad. That's funny. Uh, yeah. And what do we think about the Pink Bunny outfit. That's very iconic. Sent by his grandma, I mean his Aunt Clara.
Aunt Clara. Yeah.
Everything's I mean, I do feel like everybody always has those sort of like aunt and uncle gifts that you're just
Mhm.
like, who is this person? Like, why are they sending me these gifts? Luckily, mine were always pretty good. Uh, my uncle Mark would usually send some kind of gift, and but usually they were like, oh, this is cool. But yeah, I mean that's a fun scene.
Oh yeah, it's a real fun moment because the build up of the narrator, just like, oh, my Aunt Clara thought I was perpetually 6 years old and also a
Yeah.
girl.
So
And
yeah, and
the
the dad's
outfit is
like,
just I mean, bless the dad there, has Ralphie's back on it.
yeah,
Because we'll try it on right now.
yeah,
I feel that kind of hit me. There were some moments of, try it on right now. It's like, I don't want to. No.
yeah. You look like a pink nightmare.
Yeah.
Yes. And I, what do you think of the whole scene where she's trying to get Randy to eat? And
Oh,
it's
that's,
like,
I mean, I've struggled through the trying to get kids to eat.
yeah,
And so it's I get it. At some point, I felt for both the parents there of, going the soft route of show me how piggies eat. And I've definitely felt like the dad, just give me my pry bar and I'll just go shove the food down there.
yeah, yeah. I think any parent will have times where you're like, I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth, that I am saying this or doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it? I wish I could remember. There was a I think it was a Twitter, or it was like things that make I think it was Jamie or something like that cry. And it was just this dad like posting all of the ridiculous
Oh,
things that his
yeah. Yeah.
cry about.
Yeah, my favorite one of those was my kids crying because I wouldn't let him drown in the river.
Right.
It's like I've been in that exact same spot. I've had a toddler that just was one, like, or at this big park that's almost like Disneyland. I'm exaggerating, but it's this great city park, but there's a river next to it, and it'd been heavy rain and everything, so this thing's just raging, and and my toddler just wanted to go to the river. That's all they wanted to do, and just pull him back. Oh no, you're ruining my life, crying. So,
Funny. Yeah. I mean, I do think though that the Santa Claus in this movie is legit terrifying.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I was there. There were moments in this movie that really scared me as a kid, like
Yeah.
as a young child. So in the you'll shoot your eye out moments, like where the
Hmm.
teacher's a witch and the mom's
Oh
in
yeah.
the Harlequin
Yeah, shoot
outfit
your
and stuff.
eye,
Just
yeah.
like the for some reason that scared me, and then Santa definitely scared me. It makes sense that these children
Yeah.
in line do nothing but scream as soon as they're on Santa's lap.
A football. What's a football?
Yeah. And he could even put in his theme. It's like, I don't think a football's a good gift.
Yeah.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah, even Santa. Something I noticed on the rewatch of that is that Ralphie wore a suit and tie to go see Santa.
Yeah,
and I think he
that's
was
true.
the only one dressed up of his family for that outing. So he was taking it very seriously. He's like, Santa's my last chance of getting this air rifle. So he was gonna go and make the best
That's true.
impression possible.
He was dressed. Well, and that reminds me, one of the most iconic scenes of the movie is Randy with his we can't put his arms down. Well, put your arms down when you get to school.
Yeah, right. How would he even get out of that outfit? The poor teacher probably had to pry him out of it.
Yeah. Yes. And we of course we have the Bumpuses and their hounds, their next door neighbor that hate every living creature except my old man.
Yeah. I love the Chekhov's gun there at the beginning. When we first meet the dad, the dogs are there, and then of course they're gonna ruin Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They evidently cook this turkey in like sections. I've never seen that before. Like she takes it, I guess she's basting it or something like that in between. And because he's like picking at it and she's like, you'll get worms.
Yeah.
And so then the Bumpuses eat the turkey and everybody's so sad. No turkey hash, no turkey meatloaf, no turkey. And
sandwiches.
Yes. And then they go to Chinese food. And I guess I've heard some people find this culturally insensitive, and that's fair.
Yeah.
But it is true that they often struggle with ours. I know my Japanese friends that they find that difficult to say the American R. And so they would have a hard time saying with the joy to the world and so I don't know. To me, I thought it was funny, but I understand if people don't.
Yeah, I understand now. It's a difficult scene to watch these days, but definitely it was a joke in my family, and I have a full Japanese grandmother, so I'll preface with that. I know they went to Chinese food, but like you said, the Asian languages are that mixing of the L and the R in English is difficult. So we definitely jokes
I mean,
about fa-ra-ra-ra,
when the one guy, when he does fa la 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 la, like he's a pro, like he says it very well. And then they sing fa ra ra. I thought it was funny, but again, I understand. It is it is a bit of a caricature, and so I can understand that. But nevertheless, kind of it did, I think, point out that many people do go to Chinese on Christmas. I mean, a lot of people kind of joke that it's the Jewish Christmas is Chinese food, because because it's the only place open, and so then my Jewish friends, they often go to Chinese on Christmas, and so you sort of start that tradition. It's kind of fun, and we were just talking about that because there was a Hallmark movie called Christmas the Golden Dragon, which was all set at a Chinese restaurant, and I that was very clever, because it is a part of a lot of people's Christmas traditions to go to Chinese food. And the duck is staring at them. Smiling at me.
And just the mother's so horrified. It's just she's embarrassed to be there to begin with, it seems like it. And then just horrified that the duck head's still on, and then he just chops it off right in front of him. Because
in reality, I don't know if what do they call this place? Lane or something like that. Hammond. I don't know if a place like Hammond in 1940 would have a Chinese restaurant, but I feel like that was more of a 50s thing that got started with chop suey and some of those other things that happened in the 50s. but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, right. No, yeah. Only historians are going to nitpick that these days, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I just really, I don't know. It's one of those hard things. It's kind of hard sometimes to talk about comedies on podcasts because at a certain extent you either laugh or you don't laugh. You either think
Mhm.
it's funny or you don't. And if you don't think it's funny, the movie doesn't work for you. If you do think it's funny, then the movie works.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of challenging as opposed to like drama where I feel like there's more sort of room for discussion about why it doesn't work or not work.
Mhm.
But for me at least, I think this is really funny. I laugh. I think there's just so many endearing scenes.
Yeah.
Like the bully scene is one of my favorites. That's one of the best parts, and just the whole idea of childhood and
Mhm.
really like wanting something and kind of hoping for something, and like the camaraderie with your friends, the relationship that you have with your parents and how that ebbs and flows and changes. And I think it captures that so well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really a charm to A Christmas Story of being at that age as a child, capturing perfectly the nostalgia, I guess, for the adult looking back on it and
Yeah.
explaining it, in a funny way. And there's a just enough slapstick in here that it doesn't overwhelm the movie, but then there's also comedy that's just situational and character driven that's just it's just perfect, I feel like.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just very endearing. It really is. Well, I'm sorry that you had to watch Christmas Story too.
I am too.
I'm sorry that we had that miscommunication because it's terrible.
When I was searching for it, I saw this, A Christmas Story Christmas, and I was like, oh, that must be like a documentary or something about
Uh,
looking at, and I'm like, oh, I'll have to get to that one too, but I gotta watch this one.
yeah,
I
it's
should have messaged you there.
uh,
it, it was,
well, what did you think about it? It
uh, it, I, yeah, it wasn't good.
no, it's
you know,
so
I,
bad.
and I mean, I love Daniel Stern as an actor. He is
Hmm.
he is a talented actor, but he was not the right person to get to play the father. I don't think any of the characters were cast perfectly, or well at all. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
Randy was okay, it aged up, he was a little bit of a brat, but um, yeah, it seemed to lean far more on slapstick. The structure of the movie just didn't work with the whole, oh, I need to get the money by Christmas, time, and then working the jobs, and it it seemed like a weird just collection of scenes that were, that consisted of these aged up characters from this movie we love that just didn't seem to work right. And there
Yeah.
was
I mean,
no
there's a reason it went straight to DVD.
yeah, it didn't it the one, you just can't match the charm of the first one, but trying to reimagine it as a teenage coming of age setting, or theme in a movie, it just doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Well, and there's just something about the like teenage characters can often come across as grating and
Hmm.
selfish, because
Yeah.
it's like a somewhat selfish time of life, and it's very difficult to write those characters well, and certainly it has
Uh-huh.
been done, but it's difficult. And like all he cares about is really having this car, and you could say that all he cares about is the gun in the original, but there's so many other things going on with the bully and with the with Flick and the pole and, and
Yeah.
Little Orphan Annie. We didn't really talk about that, but that's a really funny
Oh, the
moment.
decoder pen, yeah.
Yeah.
A crummy commercial. The
I walked out of
tension
that
of
bathroom and
that.
changed.
The tension of that scene of like, I gotta finish this, Mom and Randy's really gotta come, or else we get out of it. Like, just a second, this is important.
Yeah, I think of like I used to get those book fair, things. Did you ever
Hmm.
do that? And I would want so many of the junk, so much. They always made
Oh
it seem
yeah.
so appealing. And I'm like, oh,
Uh-huh.
like I remember one time there was a Fraggle Rock book of the month thing. Like every
Hmm.
month you got sent like some Fraggle Rock book. And I wanted it so bad. That was the one thing my parents, I think they gave in on that, and I got the Fraggle Rock book club. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something more endearing about that than like a teenager who really wants a car.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Hmm.
Mhm. But yeah, so that's, I guess, the less said about that one, the better.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
I'll tell you a little bit about Christmas Story Christmas. So because there's actually at least there was one called A Summer Story, which was also terrible. So we've had all of these
Hmm.
sequels to
Did
this
you
movie.
did you see Ollie Hopnoodle's Haven of Bliss? That might have got renamed as A Summer Story, but it was made very much in the same like
Oh, really?
spirit of, yeah, and it was actually a good one too. It had a young Chris O'Donnell playing an aged up Randy, or not Randy,
Oh.
Ralphie, and Randy was like just as whiny and stuff. But it was a road trip movie, and it was the same actor that played the dad, but it was actually a really good spiritual successor more than a sequel to it. But it had the same amount of charm and humor in it, like the
Uh,
mom wanting to stop at all of these roadside shops and stuff, and there's one that had these windmills for your yard, and the dad's just like, no, we're not getting any crap, we're not getting some damn windmill. And then the next scene, they're driving along and they've got the windmill tied to the top of the car.
let's see. So the one that's yeah, I haven't seen that. The one that's the Summer Story it was actually directed by Bob Clark, and it has Charles Grodin as the old man, and Kieran Culkin. So I haven't seen that one. What's it called again? The
Ollie Hopnoodle's Haven of Bliss.
I haven't heard of that one. But yeah, Summer Story is not great. It's just not great. So, but and then A Christmas Story is too is very much not great. So there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
reason to be hesitant about this Christmas Story Christmas, because the attempts to replicate the magic, and usually
Right.
these sort of long waited sequels usually are pretty bad, and
Mm-hmm.
and I I think that they did as good a job as you could do. Like, I'm not saying this movie is perfect. It definitely has a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like, here's this from the first movie, and there's
Yeah,
room to
callbacks.
criticize.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, it had its heart in the right place. It had enough funny moments. It was sweet enough that I genuinely feel like this is the best they could have done for this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody gave me the task of make a sequel to Christmas Story with the characters in the 70s, so with Peter Billingsley as the dad, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he could really do any better. And there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
uh, and basically in this movie you have Ralphie, who's now an adult with two kids of his own, married, and he's taken a year off to try to write the great American novel. So like big sacrifices in his family and, and everything
Uh-huh.
to be able to do this. And he's written this like 2,000 page, like magnum opus sci-fi thing. Nobody will give it any attention. Nobody cares. They're not interested in the next Frank Herbert, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Neptune's Oblivion is the name of the book. And so he is getting very frustrated, and they're just about to go. They live in the city, they live in Chicago, and they're just about to go back to Hammond and spend the Christmas with his parents when the old man dies. And so they have to go kind of help the mom with everything, and they ask him to write the obituary, and because they think, oh, he's a writer, he should be able to do it, and he's really struggling to do that. And because he hasn't been working, they don't have very much money for Christmas, kind of thing. And so that kind of becomes a plot too, what the kids want for Christmas and everything. And they do some like fantasy elements from the original, like in the spirit of the original. Like at the beginning, he has this fantasy about getting the Pulitzer Prize,
right.
And kind of a thing, and so that's funny. They also have doing the old egg in the radiator trick. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, to seal a hole in the radiator. Yeah.
Which I had never heard of until I used to love the show Car Talk on NPR. It's one of my like podcasting inspirations, because I hate cars. I hate dealing with cars. Cars are a pain in the neck as far as I'm concerned. But I loved that show, and so that's sort of my goal as a podcaster to be that somebody that had no interest in rom-coms or no interest in Hallmark movies would still find the show entertaining, just like I found Car Talk entertaining, even though I don't like cars. So that's kind of my guide. Anyway, so I'd heard it on their show. They talked about the egg in the, the radiator. And they get to his mom house, and of course it's the original house from the movie, and they had Julie Haggerty playing the mom in place of Melinda Dillon, and I feel like that is just as perfect a recasting as you could do. Very, very similar kind of acting presence on screen. So I thought that was very, very well done. And then they bring back, of course, Peter Billingsley's back, and they have the same actor who played Randy back.
Oh, really? Oh, great.
Yeah. So Randy's like super rich in this version. He's like living all over abroad and everything. And so there's that. And then they bring back Schwartz and
Flick.
Which is fun. And then also we get to meet Farkas. We get Farkas back.
Yeah, okay.
And Scott Farkas became a cop. A sheriff or whatever. Which is very good. And they do kind of mimic certain scenes, like instead of the scene where he drops the F-bomb, I said what does he say? Like the king of bad words. It's instead of that, it's they get into a snowball fight while the car's getting repaired. So there's sort of a similar type of scene, but it's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
And there's also a long sequence at the beginning where they evidently have carolers that like dressed in the Victorian, style that come around. And they're like, it's two choices. You can either embrace it like my mom or hide.
Yeah.
That was funny. And I like hiding. We were kind of joking. My friend Dory and I were joking that like she was saying, I've never seen carolers in the wild. Like carolers. I'm like, I feel like we have. I've had carolers a couple of times, but it's a little bit of a lost art, I think.
Well, and I feel like these days it would just be so awkward, because even watching the movie and seeing people standing on their porch watching these people sing, it's like, what are you supposed to it's what do I do with my hands kind of thing.
Yeah. And then they have the a bullies kind of group that's picking on the kids, and for the fantasy sections it's kind of like spaghetti westerns, I guess. It's a fistful
Yeah.
of snowballs instead of, a
Yeah.
fistful of dollars. And the Santa, this is very same setup, very similar, except for when they're going to visit Santa, the kid in front of them throws up, which is so gross.
Oh.
But he buys all of the presents and stuff for his kids, but it all felt like very vintage, even more than 1970. But they did a
Mhm.
very good job of kind of capturing like down to the littlest details. The props team worked really hard, I think, on this to make everything down to every package, every item of clothing, everything feel
Mhm.
like 1970. So that
Yeah.
was good. And there's also this whole setup of this ramp. This is called the ramp, which is for like, it looks like it's part of a factory kind of
Mhm.
that they would put stuff down to for the factory,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're using it for their sleds.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of a fun sequence, I thought. There's also this whole thing of the star, and
Mhm.
the little girl is worried that Santa won't know to come to the house instead of where they live in Chicago. And so he says the star on the top of the tree will I guess will guide him and everything will be okay. But then the star
Mhm.
breaks, and
Oh
so then
no.
he has to go Christmas Eve and sneak into this bar that his friends has that he knows has this tree. And so he sneaks in and gets the thing, and that's when Scott Farkus finds him. He's like, well, well, well. And so they're able to get the star on the tree, and everything's okay. And it's very sweet. I mean, I guess I'm sorry if this is a spoiler, but they find in the basement that the old man, because he passed away like pretty close to Christmas, they
Uh-huh.
find in the basement that the old man had gotten the presents and wrapped them for the kids.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
it says, right when it seemed like the only thing missing was the old man, he was there. So that was
Oh,
very sweet and endearing.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And he said, for once, it's true that it was the thought that counts.
Uh-huh.
And he ends up the thing he writes about his dad, the
Mhm.
obituary, ends up getting like front page treatment in the Hammond Times. And he ends up writing I mean, it's very cliched, of course, the write what you
Right.
know kind of thing, but
Uh-huh.
it's a very sweet ending, I thought, for the character that yes, maybe they didn't like his sci-fi magnum opus, but they liked him writing about his dad and his family. And so the idea is,
Yeah.
is then he would go to and then write the Christmas story, which he'd be
Oh,
narrating
okay.
in the in
Okay.
the in the
Yeah.
film. So I thought that was pretty clever, pretty good. And he says the house was filled with life, love, and laughter once again. We also get, when the old man dies, the neighbors all bring all various kinds of casseroles, hot dishes,
Uh-huh.
and which is absolutely true to life.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you have a favorite casserole?
Oh, well, I don't know if baked mac and cheese counts as a casserole,
Uh-huh.
um, but yeah, I guess that would be it. My mom just makes this great baked mac and cheese. I've tried 100 times to replicate it, but
Yeah.
for some, same recipe and everything, but for some reason, it's just mom makes it best, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
you can't go wrong with mac and cheese. This is classic. I think if I was going to pick kind of my favorite of like the creamed soup varieties,
uh-huh.
I'd probably pick some kind of like Mexican enchilada type of
Oh, okay,
thing,
yeah. Uh-huh.
kind like a lot of times they'll have like, it's sort of Mexican or it's sort of a like a layered kind of casserole, so it's not the
Yes.
enchiladas like we know, but like a
Uh-huh.
layered thing where they use like canned soups and stuff. I don't know. That's pretty good. I can't eat stuff like that now because it's too salty.
Oh
I
yeah,
I
yeah.
just
They
can't
always
have.
end up pretty salty.
Yeah, but it is pretty good. It's pretty good. I also like sort of when they have like those rice and cream soup and chicken
Hmm.
and broccoli, like those kind of baked hot
Yeah,
dishes.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And yeah, and you can't go wrong with an Italian hot dish like
Hmm.
baked ziti or something like that. That's delicious.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or
I don't know
just
if
the
that counts
classic
as like a
lasagna.
real
Right.
casserole, but
Right.
but but that is true when I mean, because the nice thing about something like that is that it's cheap and it's also comforting.
Hmm.
And they have this thing here in Utah called funeral. They call them funeral potatoes, which are basically like cheesy au gratin kind of potatoes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that the reason why they got the name is because when people would need to make something for a funeral, that's often what we would make because everyone likes them. It's so yummy, it's so comforting, and it's
Yeah.
so cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
The
just
trifecta.
and they make a lot. They make a lot of meals, right? You can
Yeah,
have
yeah.
you can eat it for a few meals. Yeah, it's like
Mm,
when someone dies or when someone has a baby, you want to.
yes.
It's no one has time to cook, right? Or no one thinks about cooking.
Yeah.
You
When we lived in
serve that to them.
Maryland, we never had anybody die, so we didn't have that experience. But my mom did a baby when I was in Maryland, and it was like the thing to bring cake. We had so many cakes.
Really?
Uh, I remember we had like a dozen at least. And we had like store-bought cakes and homemade cakes and bunt cakes. So I guess I don't know if that's just a mid-Atlantic thing or a
Uh-huh.
southern thing that carried over to Maryland, or I don't know what it was, but we got lots of cakes.
Well,
Oh,
I guess that's I guess that's what you have for dinner. You
yeah,
just had a baby, right?
that's right.
No need to even heat it up, right? You can just shove it in your face.
So I think that they did, like I said, I think they did the best job that they could, and made a really sweet, endearing movie. And so I give this one, I mean, like I'd probably give it in my regular world, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
But in the world of Hallmarkies, where it's like there's a little bit of a curve,
Yes.
I would probably give it like 4.25 crowns out of 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Because I
Well,
really did enjoy it.
yeah. Well, I'm very
So,
excited to watch this, knowing that I just assumed it was a documentary, and I was going to try and get to it, but it didn't make it in time. But
well,
I'm definitely going to watch it.
another really good one that's probably even better than this is last year there was a movie called 8-Bit Christmas, which was
Oh, really?
also
Was
on
that one
HBO
good?
Max, and it has a very similar story of Christmas Story, but it's set in the 80s. And it's
Okay.
about these kids that all they want is a Nintendo.
See, I did get the
Yeah.
Nintendo for Christmas one year, and
Yeah.
that I think it was in kindergarten, but
Uh-huh.
definitely I was too young to appreciate the magnitude of getting that gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet you'll really like that 8-Bit Christmas then. It's really cute.
Okay, it's
You should try
I'll
it.
definitely have to watch that one. Yeah.
So there we go. Let us know what you think. Also, Christmas Story Christmas was directed by Clay Cadis, who is like becoming a Christmas guy because he did the Christmas Chronicles for Netflix with Kurt Russell and
Okay,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it's becoming his
All right.
thing. So let us know what you think. What
I
do you
will.
if yeah, definitely tag us when you watch it and let us know what you think. And if you're listening, what do you think of the original Christmas Story? What are some of your favorite parts? And what do you think of any of the sequels? We'd love to hear what you think in the comments or on Twitter. And Aaron, thank you so much for doing this. This was a blast.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you for having me again. I always love being here.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find your podcast and all your other content?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is Aaron's Reading Room. My Twitter is Aaron's R Room. My just signed up for it today and haven't gotten much done with it, but my Mastodon is Aaron's Reading Room, and then Aaron's Reading Room on Instagram as well, and then the Categorically Romance podcast. We are some variation of that on Twitter and Instagram as well. But you can find us on all your podcatchers at the Categorically Romance Podcast.
Very good. Yes. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And I should have a full review on my website, rachelsreviews.net, of this Christmas Story Christmas. So take a look at that. And also make sure you're following us at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. If you're listening on iTunes to either of our podcasts, please leave your ratings and reviews. It really helps us so much to be able to find us. And if you are watching YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 5K subscribers. We just need a few more. So please help us out. And we also have the Patreon group, which is such a fun group to be a part of. And you get to be a part of watch-alongs. And it's very fun. So please take a look at that. And we also have the merch store where you can get lots of fun holiday-inspired merch. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much again, and we'll talk to you later. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.